Hello again, everyone. Where am I going? I've got two pens to talk about right now. These two are in my pocket, and they're happy to see me. So this is a Parker 45 that I said I would try out and try to understand and learn to love this pen. And it's a little difficult to love. What I did do is I changed the nib on it and changed the cap and changed this thing. I kept the blue color, and I don't know why I did that, but I did. The filler unit had blue ink in it, so I just kept the blue. But I put one of the steel nibs, not the gold nib. The gold nib was a little fine and a little scratchy, so I have to, and I think it's because the tines weren't quite aligned right, so I need to yank the nib out and try to fix that. The steel nib here has a little bit of flex to it. It's not as fine, but it's enough to keep me happy while I solidify, is that the word? My views on this pen. But I'll tell you some of them right now, because that's what came to mind when I tried this pen. This is one that was in my sale bin, or I don't know where it was, but this was for sale, and it might still be for sale. I have to look back to see if I have a duplicate of this that I prefer to this one. I think I do, and the reason that I put this in my sale area was because of that dent right there, which you can't see in the gloom. There, can you see? Zoom in. There you go. Now you can see it. That is its only flaw, I think. Yes, I could just find a different cap. But this is the largest size that this pen came in. And it's really neat because it's so heavy. It's massive. Its mass is great. It's not just weight. It's what is mass? Where's my science definition book here? It is denser, heavier per cubic inch than other pens. This is one of the lightest per cubic inch of any pen, which is what's sort of disarming about this one, and which is very aggressive and fully armed that this one is. When you pick up this pen to write with it, you really sense the massiveness of this pen, and maybe the massiveness will add gravity to the words you're putting down on the page. Yeah, you can just don't have to watch the rest of this if you've already decided I'm some sort of nut. I am some sort of nut. I will freely admit that. But there's something really, really neat about holding onto this pen and writing with it because it's so heavy. It's like, if you use a Big Red a lot, Parker Duofold Senior Size Big Red, or any size Big Red, and it's a plastic Big Red, and someone hands you, or you pick up next, a Big Red that's made of hard rubber. It is heavier and more massive because the size hasn't changed. It's just denser, heavier material that it's made of. And it's really sort of an interesting switch. And you have to recalibrate your hand and your brain and all the muscles in your arm to be able to move this thing around compared to that thing that you had used. And I find that is yet another factor in my little tiny brain in how I can appreciate a pen. You know, there's the nib size, the flexibility, the length, the width, the whatever of the pen. Yes, how pretty it is, how rare it is, all of these things do enter into my little brain as I'm drawing or writing with it. But I haven't really talked about the massiveness of the pen, which again I think is, you know, do I have to take a bath and jump in and run around naked saying Eureka because I've understood something about a pen and the massiveness of it? It's a factor that does, it's not just weight, it's the density of weight within a defined cubic area. What's the word for cubic? Volume. Volume. Thank you very much, brain cell. You actually worked this morning. It's not even 6 o'clock. So it's an interesting thing. This is one of the, you know, maybe it isn't the least massive of pens, but it's one of the lightest of pens. And I think it's also, you know, the plastic is lighter, the cap is aluminum, I think there's less stuff in this thing than in this thing, even if they were the same shape, size, length. This one has made of heavier materials, I think, or something. I don't really quite know. But the massiveness of a pen is yet another concern that I get to play with. Isn't that fun? Think of how many more videos I can make repeating myself ad nauseum, but this time talking about mass rather than weight. Maybe I'm not understanding mass in general. I know that our mass is the same if we go to the moon, but my weight is less. It's a sixth, I think. Is that what it is? So I'd weigh only 200 pounds on the moon. Now I would weigh less, but my mass would be the same. And now I'm confused again. I'm not confused. I'm just wondering. For a pen, we're not talking about, you know, the weight of battleships and things like that, or the mass of a supermassive black hole. Is that the best you could do, scientists? Supermassive, super duper massive? Is that going to be next when they realize that there's even a bigger thing than a supermassive black hole? It's like the president describing some bomb, a super duper bomb, I think is what he said. We have a new super duper bomb. Oh, goody goody. God. Supermassive black hole. So this is a supermassive pen. That's just dumb. Mega massive. What's a good adjective to use for massive? Densely massive? No, that's part of the definition. But what's the word we should, write your answers below. What should astronomers have called supermassive black hole in the center of our galaxy? And don't say Fred. friend of mine, I asked him, artist friend of mine who's very clever and very, very talented, and if I could put stock in people, I'd invest all of my money in his stock, because I think he's going to go places. Where was I going with my discussion? Oh yes, I remember. So I've been doing a lot of stuff using super glue. Sorry. Glue sticks, hot glue. What's wrong with me? Hot glue. So you glue something with your little glue gun. It squirts out this piping hot glue, and then you put it on one piece of something, and you put another piece of something on it. You press down with your thumb, and you realize that hot glue is aptly named because it burns you quite well. And then you put the gun down, and then you take your hand and you cut out another piece of cardboard, and the thing you just glued flies across the room because there's this little invisible strand of hot glue, like a little spider web strand, that is connecting you, your finger, the gun. They're all connected by this web of hot glue, which you cannot see with the naked eye unless the light hits it just perfectly. And you feel stupid, and you feel inadequate, and you feel everything, just like the bug that got caught in the spider web. You say, "Oh, God damn it!" And the spider slowly moves toward you and rubs his little feet. I don't know how many feet he needs to use to eat a big fat fly, but he rubs his little feet together, and he comes up to consume, sharpens his little teeth, and eats the fly. Well, anyway, I was thinking that these little filaments of hot glue should have a name, just like supermassive black hole has a name, except it should be clever and make sense. And this artist friend of mine is a student of Italian and other languages, but he loves Italian, and I thought that there could be a neat Italian connection of words, blah blah adhesive, or whatever it would be. Invisible, whatever it is in Italian, adhesive or something could be the name of these little strands. Strandy adhesive. How's that for insulting language, like Pig Latin or something? Anyway, so I said, what should we call it? And he texted me back, Fred. And I said, no, that's not what I meant. That's not what we're calling it. We're calling it something else. And we haven't come up with that word. But the Germans could come up with it. Of course they could. You know, it'll be 5,000. Where's my stub nib for my fractor? Because I don't know a single word in German that gestücken, gestücken, gestücken. Okay, sticky filaments, string, webbing, stringen. Anyway, it would be not this long, not that long, but be about that long, from here to there, at 10-point typeface in Apple Chancery script. No, it would be in some font. It would be at 10 points. It would be that big. And it would, you know, the German word, which is made up of like 15 other words into one compound word, would describe everything about the filament that I'm trying to describe to you. Invisible, sticky, hot glue associated, annoying, what else? Invisible. I think that's enough. So, write your answers below. What should we call the hot glue strands, and what should astronomers have called a supermassive black hole? And what should our president have called the super duper bomb? What is the actual name in the Defense Department documents for the super duper bomb? Super duper Space Force super duper bomb. What's the word we use for our president? Lame. Duck. I think we could just cross out the duck. Just call him lame. Got the best words. Anyway, what are the best words you have for this? So the massiveness of a pen. This appears to be lighter than it should be. You look at it with your eyeballs and you say, okay, this is going to weigh so much. And it turns out to weigh less than that. And you think, oh, with a little tiny bit of disappointment. And that's sort of what I'm still feeling with these pens. It seems lighter than I want it to be. Less massive. But, back to the 45 again. It's kind of like holding a pencil. Do I have a pencil anywhere near me? I don't. But a pencil has a very number 2 Dixon Ticonderoga pencil has a very understandable weight to it. And you don't think of how heavy it is because it's generally so very light. So you just use the pencil and you don't even know that it's there, hardly. That's kind of what this pen is like. It's making a line magically because I don't feel it as being heavy. And another thing that really annoys me about this pen, and I don't know if it's just my laziness or what, but I notice that I often will put the pen to paper and I'm not actually writing on I'm moving the pen around like this and nothing's happening because the slit is not making contact. It's making contact now, but I rotate it 90 degrees and it's not making contact. 90 degrees, there. Anyway, it's not really making contact when it's on its side. And I don't have that problem with a 51, which has even a smaller nib exposed. I don't know, is it just that I'm not used to this pen? I have the clip lined up with the top so I know without looking at the nib what it's supposed to do. But it's a problem I have noticed I've been having with that pen. That I start writing and nothing happens. And then I rotate the pen a little bit and it happens. It writes. But I don't know why this is happening with this pen. So, again, it's something for me to discover. It'll probably be just that I'm lazy and impatient. What do you think? Write your answers below. What's wrong with Pierre Gustafson? He's super duper lazy. Does that work? Is that a term? No, that's not very good. One of the things too that I've noticed I've been doing, and maybe I've got a brain tumor or something, or maybe because I'm looking sometimes through the camera and not directly at the pen, but through the image on the camera, is I miss my target. You know, it's lined up this way, but it just happened. Here I thought I was going to go in, but I went over the top. So my depth perception is screwy. I wonder if it's because I'm not really using my right eye. My right eye has a problem. If I make a straight line with a ruler, or even just like this, my left eye, if I look at it, it looks like that, straight. If I look using my right eye at this is what it looks like today. It used to only have one bump. I think it still only has one bump. It's just my glasses are filthy. Yes, okay. It looks like that. Because I've got on my eyeball, here's my iris, here's my optic nerve, my brain. Somewhere here on this membrane, the back of my eye, I've got this big growth, which can be removed with a scalpel by going into the eyeball somehow while I'm awake. Yeah, how many, am I going to do that right now? I'm happy. I'll just look at a bump. So it's, I'm using more of my left eye to read and to focus and to do things. I'm sort of ignoring my right eye right now. So maybe my depth perception is not being utilized. Massive pens. That's what I want you to think about. Do you even notice the mass of this pen? Not the weight. I'm not talking about the weight. I'm talking about the mass. Now, I don't want you all to, take your pens into the bathtub with you to find out, in fact, which one is the most massive per volume. But if you want to, you can. You can jump out of the tub naked with your black hard rubber duofold and run around yelling Eureka if you want to. Why not? These pens do have a flaw quite often, is that they have a screw section, and depending on where you start threading the barrel on the section, the lever will end up in one of 2 or 3 or 4 places. It can be this way. Let's try to do it. Come on. There. It can be underneath. So I guess this one has 4 ways because I'm rotating it only. It can be that way on the side, or this is the one that will be on the top. Or on the top. 4 locations for this lever. And of course, it doesn't line up with the top of the nib. That would be here. But to tighten it, it's there. So it's off by that much. And these pens all have that problem. Let's try this one. Okay. Here we have it's on the bottom. Come on. So the way you can fix this, there's a couple ways you could fix it. one if it really bothered you a lot. You don't have to screw it down all the way, but that's stupid. Is that the best it's going to get? No, this is the best it's going to get. Now, do I have another one of these? Yes, look at this. I've got two. This is the other way. You get all of your pens that are the same color, like this, same kind of thing, and you see this one is off too. This is off a little bit. And you just switch the things. Maybe that'll make them work. Okay, this one came off of here. This will go onto there. This will go onto here. So which cap goes with which pen? No, see, this one doesn't work that way. Just put them back the way they were. Still don't know which. See what happens, the sack gets all bent out of shape sometimes. I don't know why that one did. No, see, it just needs another little tiny twist. So let's pretend that this is the pen I wanted to keep. And it bothered me that it needs to screw on one little tiny bit more. If I filed that barrel down just a little tiny smidge, it might go that little tiny bit more, right? Or I could get my pliers and I could really squish it together and maybe it would line up, but then when I need to replace the sack, it will break when I'm trying to take it apart. Okay, which one was the one that I liked? Do I have to figure this out again? I guess I do. Okay, this one. So anyway, that's a thing with these screw section Triumph nib, or really anything that has a screw section and a lever, is lining it up. Now, if it has a regular nib, you can take out the feed and nib and line it up that way. But with a Triumph nib, you can't do that. You're stuck. Okay, so which pen do I want? That one's fine and only slightly flexible. This one is more broad and more flexible. So I'm going to keep that one. Is there a cap that I prefer? This cap is a little tiny bit longer than that cap. Am I a size queen in that way? Do I need to have the one that's a tiny bit longer? Does one screw on seemingly? See, look at this. This is another thing that happens. God damn it. It's not going to help. Okay, now I've forgotten which is which. I'll be here all morning. I think this is the nib I like. Ta-da! Done. This pen does not have, this might be more massive than this, because this is a slightly smaller pen than this, but this feels lighter. I mean, it feels less massive. This has a density that's really satisfying, in the same way that the density of this one is not satisfying immediately. But again, I may, see, I can't line it up. But I may learn that I like this really light pen for some reason. I haven't figured out what that is yet. I will. There'll be a reason. This pen really should have a nib like this one. Broader and louder. Maybe the one, if I have a duplicate of this, maybe the one that I have has that. When I have two pens that are identical, it does take me a while to decide which one I want to say goodbye to. Sometimes it's very easy, other times it's harder, and 99% of the time it has to do with the nib. But I can quite often swap a nib out if I want to. But this is a very pleasant pen to play with. Supermassive black hole. Write your answers below.